Hi, this is Richard Jacobs with myduiattorney.org, and I'm here today to interview John English. He's a DUI lawyer and general criminal lawyer out of Michigan. He works for the firm Kronzik and Cartwright. Thank you for being here today, Mr. English. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Okay. If you don't mind, without any ado, let's just get right into the questions.
Certainly.
My first question for you is, what makes you choose to handle DUI cases, and what motivates you to be a criminal defense attorney in the first place?
Um, in terms of just criminal defense work generally, I find the work challenging. I think it's a very useful function to perform. Gives me the opportunity to help. And in terms of concentrating on drunk driving,
Mhm.
it is an offense that covers the whole spectrum of people, from people with not much money to people who are very wealthy in terms of financials,
Okay.
and pretty much and women almost equally.
Okay.
So it's an offense that has very broad consequences for people.
Right.
It affects their liberty in a worst case scenario and their driver's licenses. So it's the type of offense that can affect a lot of people, has negative consequences, and I can help minimize those consequences many times.
Okay. And how many DUI cases have you handled, and in what time period?
Um, I've been doing DWI cases or drunk driving cases since 1985, so I've been doing them for approximately 25 years,
Wow.
and I've done hundreds of cases.
Huh. Okay. And for doing it so long, I mean, what have you noticed over, 25, 26 years, the changes in, I mean, in the law, it seems like it's gotten a lot more strict, but how about in the people themselves? Have they changed? Are they still kind of the same?
Well, I've found in my experience probably the majority of people charged with driving while intoxicated are first-time offenders.
Okay.
That's always been the case, but there continue to be a smaller group of people who repeat this offense many times. And as you're aware, the law has been becoming more stringent year after year.
Right.
So this can have really devastating consequences for such people.
Okay. And you've already kind of answered this, but when we talked about the typical DUI defendant circumstance, you're saying men and women are equal income level. There's no typical, but more first-time offenders. Is there any other thing that you see in the people that you see that is a commonality?
Obviously, repeat offenders arguably don't use the best judgment. Anybody can make a mistake,
Right.
have one drink too many, go out and be pulled over by a police officer. And many people in the criminal justice system, of course, recognize that. But repeat offenders don't seem to, for whatever reason, learn from the prior consequences.
Okay.
And they're out there drinking and driving when many of us would not be doing that.
Right. And of the clients that you've had, Do a lot of them have a blood alcohol level close to the 0.08 limit, or do a lot of them seem to have significantly higher blood alcohol levels?
The majority of clients are not at or near the legal level. In Michigan right now, it's 0.08.
Okay.
The majority of clients that I see are probably, say, for example, a 1-2, roughly. That would be 1.5 times the legal limit.
Okay.
And up until the 2 O's, 2-2, 2-4, something like that. So probably 2.5 times the norm.
Okay. And do you see a lot more cases due to alcohol or drugs? And is a drug case DUI easier or harder to defend?
See many more cases of drinking and driving with alcohol involved.
Okay.
Drug cases. Michigan has recently legalized the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes
Okay.
when prescribed by a doctor. And these matters are currently being worked out in the appellate courts in terms of if you are lawfully entitled to use marijuana medically, if it is still illegal to be operating a vehicle with the presence of any THC in your blood. That particular issue is in the Court of Appeals right now.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I can see that that would be an unusual issue because if a person, if they used marijuana 2 weeks ago, let's say, and then they drove today and they were pulled over and their blood was tested, they weren't. I mean, were they driving under the influence of something or were they not? They really weren't, I guess. But I wonder if I guess we'll see how it plays out if the courts feel like they were and charge them.
Well, Michigan has one offense that is called operating with the presence of drugs, and certain controlled drugs, Schedule 1 or 2 drugs. It is illegal to operate in blood.
Okay.
And of course, THC is one of those substances. So generally, it's illegal for someone in the general public, clearly, to operate a vehicle with any THC in their blood, even if they're not intoxicated.
Huh. Okay.
Meaning, even if it hasn't affected their ability to drive.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't get off track, but can you speak just quickly about the penalties for that particular offense?
Operating with the presence of drugs, generally speaking, carries the same penalties as a drunk driving offense.
Really? Okay.
In Michigan, anyway, generally the penalties are the same for a drinking and driving offense or a drug driving offense with minor variations.
Really? Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
All right. So, besides what we just talked about, what other unique things do you know of about the DWI laws in Michigan, or maybe even the counties you serve or the cities you serve?
Unique things. Well, when I practiced in New Hampshire a number of years ago, the law there was you had the right to refuse a breath or a blood test.
Huh.
And if you did so, then you'd be subject to administrative sanctions, which would involve license loss.
Right.
In Michigan, you don't have a right to refuse. Essentially, you're going to incur an administrative sanction, and then in Michigan, they will obtain your typical percent to a search warrant.
Okay.
So that would be an example of how things are maybe different in this state.
Okay.
What other thing? wondering about? Anything in specific, or?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's, I guess amongst all the 50 states, does Michigan have any peculiarities in the DWI law that you know of that aren't or are unique to Michigan? I guess.
Um, that would be all that I'm aware of at the moment that I can
Okay.
think of.
Yeah, I know it's a difficult question, very open ended, but I just figured I'd ask you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, all right. So, what would be your best advice or tip when someone's literally in the process of being pulled over and they've had one or more drinks? What suggestions do you have for them? What should they do? What shouldn't they do?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that.
Okay.
I make it a point to tell not only all my clients, but pretty much anybody that I speak to about a drunk driving case or drunk driving charge, uh, the following. First of all, I try to explain to them that it's important that you never lie to a police officer. You may find that you want to testify at a trial or a hearing, and if you have to start off that process by admitting under oath that you lied earlier, um, that's not going to hold to the cause. I tell people that once the police officer notes that they've been drinking and
Right.
it's them behind the wheel, that they are highly likely going to be arrested. And anything they say or do will not change that. I believe that the officer's job, most officers feel, is to, probably in their words, get the drunk off the road.
Okay.
I think that the officer is going to arrest anybody that they believe was drinking is behind the wheel, rather than let them go free.
Hmm.
I then uh, suggest to people that when the officer asks them if they've been drinking or what if they had to drink, that they decline to answer any such questions until they have an attorney present.
Okay.
Of course, it's to be expected the officer will observe that there aren't any attorneys available right now, ma'am or sir, and I tell people then you should say, well, then I don't want to make any statements until I have the ability to consult with an attorney.
Okay.
It's always damaging to make any admissions to a police officer, especially when you don't have to make those admissions. I then advise clients uh, that they should refuse, generally, they should refuse field sobriety tests. Any kind of physical roadside tests are typically not to their advantage to take.
Right. Okay.
I also suggest that here in Michigan, we have a preliminary breath test that's administered pre-arrest, and I advise people not to take the PBT. If you Michigan, there are no points added to your record. You will not go to jail. You'll be issued a civil infraction. It's not a crime. It's like a speeding ticket.
Huh.
So I reiterate then, don't answer any questions, don't do any physical roadside tests, don't take any preliminary breath test, and that is before your arrest on the roadside. It's typically a handheld little machine because people have a tendency to pick it up. Then once somebody is arrested, I advise people in Michigan to take whatever test, breath or blood, the arresting officer requests. Michigan, refuse to take the requested test, you'll get 6 points on your driving record. And for a first refusal, your license will be suspended for 1 year.
Huh. Okay.